Let's talk about how to turn criticism and judgment into feedback in order to supersize and grow your business. Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here, and today's topic are criticism and judgment versus constructive feedback. How do we go about taking something that is one of the most destructive, negative things that can happen in a relationship and therefore destroy our business from the inside out and destroy our culture, and turn that into something that can help us to grow and build and supersize our business? Well, first we have to understand what criticism is. Criticism, and I'm going to read this definition with my magnifying glass so you don't think I'm just making things up. We've all experienced when people are giving us feedback versus when people are criticizing or judging us. So the definition of criticism can be defined as the act of pointing out perceived flaws, faults, and mistakes in another person, usually in a way that makes them feel small or inadequate. It often includes sweeping generalizations like, your company always does this, or your company never does that, or you as a manager always do this, or you managers never do this, etc. Sweeping generalizations. It's a criticism usually meant as a mean or a mean-spirited cut or stab in some way, shape, or form to make you feel bad. Judgment involves forming an opinion about someone's character, choices, or lifestyle, often without understanding or even knowing what you're talking about. It implies a moral high ground. I'm bigger and better than you, therefore I can judge you, which has no place in any of my businesses. So what's an example of this? How does this play out? We talked about in the Be a Better You annual challenge how it plays out in different types of relationships, how it plays out in friendships, how it plays out in our primary relationship. But I want to talk about professional relationships. How does it play out in that? Judgment affects team morale, productivity, and trust. A judgmental manager or a judgmental colleague will undermine your confidence. They'll instill fear and of all kinds of negative behavior. They'll cause you to second guess yourself and your ability to do different things in your organization. And that type of behavior happens in organizations all the time when tolerated, right? We don't have to tolerate that kind of behavior in our businesses. If somebody says to somebody else, you're not leadership material. Well, what the heck does that even mean, right? That's judgment. It's not feedback. So let's clearly discuss what's the difference between criticism and feedback. Criticism is personal. It focuses on the person, not on the behavior. Feedback, on the other hand, focuses on the behavior. Criticism blames and shames people. Feedback encourages improvement, right? When we give feedback, we're giving feedback because we want to help someone, not because we want to hurt them. I'd say when we're criticizing, it's because we want to hurt them. Criticism is usually generalizes and is generalized and vague. They don't give specific examples. They use grandiose terms like you always or you never or things like that. Feedback, on the other hand, is specific and actionable. When you said this at the meeting, this is the impact it had. That's actionable. When you said this, it hurt my feelings. When you said this, you should have seen the looks on the faces of the other team members. That's something that's actionable, right? Criticism often is emotionally charged. Feedback is calm and respectful. Hey, if I'm giving you feedback, I'm giving you feedback because I want to help you, not because I want to be, super emotional about something. Criticism, of course, breaks trust and destroys relationships. Feedback, on the other hand, builds trust and makes the environment better for everyone. There's a lot of psychology behind criticism and judgment. Usually is psychology of the person doling out the criticism and judgment. If I'm being judgmental or critical of someone else, it's usually because I somehow feel like I'm not measuring up or I'm not adequate or I'm not good enough to have a certain thing. If I'm judging something, and I did a lot of soul searching about judgment following my sudden cardiac arrest in 2010. For some reason, when I woke up from the medically induced coma and freezing that went along with my sudden cardiac arrest, anything judgmental just was like nails on the chalkboard. It just drove me nuts. And I think it was my lesson learned that I had been far too judgmental and critical in my life prior to this event. Judgment is a defense mechanism. Usually when we're judgmental, it's because we're feeling inadequate about something, or we're nervous or scared or fearful of a category of people, right? But it's okay to be open and vulnerable. So how do we handle criticism and judgment constructively? Then we're going to talk quickly about how do we create a culture of feedback? How do we shift from criticism and judgment to a feedback-based culture? And how do we transform criticism? I'm going to challenge you to do this today, to actually practice this today, transforming criticism into constructive feedback. It's not that hard, actually. So what do we do when somebody criticizes us or judges us, right? Oh, you always do this. You're such a goody two-shoes, or whatever it might be. What do? Number one, you pause before reacting. Instead of reacting, we want to respond. And guess what? We want to respond with curiosity instead of firing back at them our own criticism, or instead of fighting back or getting defensive. We want to say, well, what the heck would make you say that? So the second thing we want to do when dealing with criticism and judgment is we want to set boundaries. Hey, this is my boundary, my line in the sand of behavior from you I will not tolerate. And we want to be clear about those boundaries. I feel disrespected when you criticize me or say mean things to me in staff meetings. It's not appropriate. My boundary is, if you've got feedback for me or something you want to say to me, either criticism, judgmental, or feedback, whatever you want, you say it to me in private. You don't say it in a group. Number 3, seek clarity. Ask, what are you hoping that I'll take away from what just happened? How do you think I'm going to respond? How do you expect me to respond to that criticism or judgment that just happened in the middle of our staff meeting? Number 4, reframe the situation. Try to put yourself in the other person's shoes and understand the criticism, or view the criticism as just one little data point, one little piece of feedback. Sometimes when I used to do this with performance reviews and performance appraisals as I was given. Sometimes we'd get one and we'd have something that was so out of left field. You're like, okay, well, that was one data point. Wonder where that came from. And then I would go out and look for more things that would cause the person to have said that. So how do we shift from a culture of criticism and judgment, if that has snuck into your organization in any way, shape, or form? Or how do we deal with it when it comes up so that we can create a culture of feedback and compassion in our organization? The first thing we want to do is we want to emphasize the importance of compassion and kindness in our communication. Every thought that pops into our head does not have to come out of our mouth. It's perfectly okay if it doesn't. Sometimes it's okay to take a deep breath and say, do I really want to say that? Is it important that I say that? Is it going to help the situation or the person or the relationship if I say that? If the answer is no to any of those, take a deep breath and don't say anything. So how do we shift to a constructive, compassionate, feedback-based system? Number 1, use I statements. We talked about this day before yesterday, using I statements, and talk about how someone's behavior or action or what they did or said made you feel. I feel blank. I feel hurt when you trash me in front of the entire management team at a staff meeting. Instead of saying, hey, you're always so mean, and it becomes a big argument. Number 2, ask questions. Try to get more information on why the person would have said what they said. Can you help me understand what happened in the meeting? Number 3, practice empathy. Try to put yourself in the other person's shoes and imagine what they're going through or feeling or needing that they put you in a negative spotlight. And then 4, celebrate efforts. As people make efforts and improve, and stop criticizing, stop judging, acknowledge that, and positively reinforce the behavior that you want, and call out and give constructive, compassionate, kind feedback on the behavior that you don't want. So today I challenge you to think about a situation in which either you were criticized or judged, usually wrongly in our opinion, but sometimes it's not wrong, then it becomes feedback, right? Or one in which you criticized or judged or assumed, because usually when we're judging, we're assuming because we never know everything, right? Unless we've previously asked and found out the information that we need, which most people never do that. They just assume and judge without knowing anything or having personal experience in it. But reflect on a recent interaction that you had. Spend a few minutes on this, identify the underlying need or emotion that you had at the time that you criticized or judged somebody else. Maybe you're having a bad day and you're driving in traffic and you yell at a driver in front of you that cuts you off in traffic because you had a bad day. You just needed to vent. They can't hear you. They're in their car long gone and you're in your car, but you needed to do that. But that's the type of situation where we want to unravel what's really going on. And then write the criticism that you gave or the expletives that you may have spoken and change that into feedback instead of criticism. Hey, when you cut me off in traffic, that stressed me out and scared me because I thought we were going to crash. Something like that. Here's another example, an example that's probably better than that. You might say, as a criticizer, you're so selfish, you never think of anyone else. And then you want to think about, well, what really happened? What was I upset about? What do I need? And then reframe the feedback as feedback. I felt dismissed when my needs weren't considered. I would really appreciate being involved or included when plans are made. So, if appropriate, share the revised feedback with the person that you criticize or judge. If not appropriate, don't. If the relationship is important to you, I would say share the revised feedback. Have a conversation with the person that you've had this interaction with and start to make an agreement, if appropriate, that you'll do better, both of you, going forward. All right, that's our topic for today. If I can help you in any way, hit me up and ask. Otherwise, have an awesome day, and I'll, of course, be with you tomorrow. Try this on. This is really important for the culture of your business.